Is it too little, too late to salvage Ben and the relationship?
I don't think it's too late. I think what they're doing in Pittsburgh is just trying to figure out all their options, like what's available to us before we make a decision on what we want to do with Big Ben. We've already gotten him to the point where he's willing to take a pay cut, and if he's willing to take a pay cut, how significant? The cap charge is at $40+ million, but the cap is not real cash. It's the real money that they got to pay him that's more concerning for them than it is the cap number. And once they do one, it affects the other. It'll bring the cap down. Once they say, hey, are you willing to pay for $8 million? Now that cap number is going to drop because the restructure is put in play. Can they move forward with him at quarterback? Yeah, I think they can. They were 11-2 at once upon a time. Mm-hmm. He was a part of that. Is there other options out there? As we continue to go through this so-called quarterback carousel, I don't know that there are better options out there for Pittsburgh right now today. I don't see it, right? Matt Ryans and Deshaun Watsons, those are dreams. You're not getting Aaron Rodgers, are the Raiders going to part ways with their quarterbacks? You just don't know. Look at the field of guys. Jay, would you rather have Big Ben or Teddy Bridgewater? I mean, we could play the game back and forward, but there's not a lot of options that are out there for the Steelers at this moment.
Like you said, Key, if you could move on for Deshaun Watson or Matt Ryan, I understand. You do that. If you could. If you didn't get, because the demand is high on those two guys. So what do you have to give up in order to get those two guys? You have to give up the whole house pretty much. So, look, you bring Big Ben back. Let him have a farewell season. And Key, I think this is a chance for the Steelers as much as they weren't defeated before they went on this really bad run. Lack of running game, their defense was depleted. You give it one more try, and you let Big Ben have his farewell season. For a guy who's been to the Super Bowl 3 times, who's won 2, you treat one of the best quarterbacks in the history of your franchise the right way on the way out. Now, if Big Ben wants to go another 2 years or 3 years, then I think you have to face that. But as it relates to one more year, allow Big Ben, one of the best quarterbacks in your franchise history, to be there for one more year and let him have one last stab at it.
Yeah, why not have, when you start to try to figure out some of the other things that you need to do on the offensive side of the ball. You got to retool the running game and shore up the offensive line. You got to figure out whether or not Juju Smith-Schuster is in your plans in the future, given the fact that Johnson and Claypool are young enough, along with Washington, that the receiving core potentially could be set. You got the tight end situation taken care of. The defensive side with Bud Dupree and Devin Bush. Can you get them back in the fold? You got Micah Fitzpatrick on the defensive side. Can you shore up maybe looking at another corner as Joe Hayden continues to get older at that spot? So there's some play around certain guys on the team that you want to try to address, but at the same time, you got to find a quarterback, and the only quarterback available to you right now is Big Ben at a certain number.
Now, go ahead, Jay.
I was going to ask you this, Key. If Big Ben plays well this year, and then he wants to come back next year for another year, how much longer of a runway does Big Ben have? I guess that's the...
What's playing well, though, right? I mean, playing well, going back.
Means winning a Super Bowl this year, right?
Well,
it's
yeah,
Super Bowl
point,
bust, right?
At that point, though, you might want to, if he goes and wins the Super Bowl, then it's time for Ben to retire. It's almost like the John Elway situation. The great John Elway at the end of, or Peyton Manning at the end of their careers, they could still play, but, right? It wasn't John Elway in 1998 when he retired. It was like he could still do it, but he's like not Elway. So he went out on a high note. He wins the Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons. Now it's time to hang him up, and that's what I can see and vision with Big Ben.
Yeah, and you also have to think about his 2 contemporaries from that draft class. It's already over for Eli. It just ended for Phillip Rivers. Here's one thing I want to bring to the table that is going to be really important with Big Ben to think about. What do you think about Mason Rudolph? Now, your visceral initial knee-jerk reaction is like, no thanks.
You
We'll
see
go
me?
somewhere else.
See, look,
Not
I'm
it.
sha-
Not
you see
it.
me shaking my head. I'm
saw
like,
it.
Couple things to keep in mind. He did play in the Week 17 game against Cleveland, and as we know, that game meant everything to the Browns. We also know sometimes one-game auditions can do enough to boost you a little bit. Often has been lost that in that Week 17 game against Pittsburgh that Cleveland really needed, and I keep emphasizing that because it was an opponent that was very, very hungry. Rudolph threw for 315 yards in the game. I'm not saying that's why you sign him. I'm just saying he finally had shown some signs of life. Also, keep in mind the Steelers are the 24th pick in the draft. You can get a guy right around 24, 25. I believe number 12 for Green Bay can show you right around that spot. You can get a guy. But what's interesting for the Steelers is their last 7 first-round draft picks. Last 7, because Big Ben had given them so much great play and durability at the quarterback position when he was out there. I know he was banged up, but he's one of the toughest guys. The last 7 first-round picks, all defensive, including 5 linebackers. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. His longevity has allowed them to shore up the other side of the ball to the extent where we can take our most important draft pick almost every single year on the defensive side of the ball because he has provided enough on offense. Now, after nearly 2 decades, entering his 18th season, now maybe they have to look at that first-round pick at 24 and say, we need to go offense. Maybe a quarterback is there at the bottom of the first round.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.